Go ahead.
No, so World Football Summit is where where the football industry meets. That's tagline, but it's become a lot more than that. It's basically where the extended sports industry comes together for kind of networking, kind of coming together to solve today's problems like nowhere else. There are going to be meetings that you're going to be able to have in 48 hours at a WFS event that you're probably not going to have for 6 months. Right. And it's that kind of, a really joyous occasion for us. And
hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Jaime and Kabir. And first of all, how are you guys? Thanks for taking the time. And how's life these days?
Ole, thank you for having us. Doing good. I'm here in Spain, very hot, but doing good. Very glad to be here.
Glad to hear.
Likewise, thank you, Ole, for having us. I'm right now based out of New Delhi, India. So nice. If not hotter, let's just say similar.
I don't know though, like Europe has been pretty warm recently, Spain in particular, with some crazy temperature. Luckily, it's moving a little bit up into the UK area these days. But of course, it's a pleasure to have both of you here, working for World Football Summit. And we're going to cover a lot of different things, in this episode. And like I said, it's a pleasure having both of you here. And I think, just to kind of get everyone warm, get things started, I think it would be nice to, if both of you could kind of very shortly talk a bit about your journey in the sport industry, how it began, and more importantly, how did you end up at World Football Summit? And I'm thinking if Jaime, you wanna kick things off?
Sure. It's been a long journey, but it's until I got here to World Football Summit. But basically 10 years ago, more or less, I studied an MBA in sports management.
Yeah.
And then from there, what I started to do was actually kind of side projects on my little free time that I had available with sport organizations. So basically consulting roles, business development roles, with different football properties, sports organizations in basketball, for example. Right. In fact, as a result, in 2016, I actually attended the first World Football Summit, kind of, trying to generate leads for what I was doing back then.
Yeah.
And then, the years went by, I started, kept doing that. And then back in, during the pandemic, I guess I was not the only one doing this, but I started my own newsletter. Right. And then, well, it was a few months ago. One of the subscribers to my newsletter was actually Jan Alessi, founder of World Football Summit. He liked one of the articles that I sent out, and he got in touch. We started, having a conversation, and that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. That's a really cool story, and it really, just to touch upon that, it really showcased the importance of, putting down effort, and showing yourself in the industry. And go for it, Kabir.
I was just about to agree with you there. Jaime has been a revelation here for us at WFS. But yes, echoing his thoughts, it's been a pleasure to be here. My journey has been a little bit more topsy-turvy for that matter. I started out as a BTech engineer, moved into writing for fun for Yahoo Sports UK, very, very young on that front. That is something that I wrote just like an opinion pieces for Arsenal Football Club. And then somehow, that kind of indicated to me that I want to work with the sports industry. After completing my bachelor's, I took a little bit of time off and then got into a really good master's over at the AISTS in Lausanne, Switzerland, which basically introduced me to this wonderful industry of football and sport by extension. One thing led to another. I worked with the nascent stages of Next Sports, who are one of our industry partners as well for the WFS Awards right now. And then, from there on, I ran into Jan, like Jaime, but in person this time. And yeah, it was just one of those happenstance things. It's actually been 3 years now this week for me at WFS, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. I will look over the content now, and since then, it's just been a different ride altogether, if you think about it, with everything pre-COVID, post, during, and post. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, and I think it's for before we go a little bit in, then I'm glad you kind of touched upon the pandemic because we have to cover a little bit in that element. But before we kind of do that, I just wanted to, if both or any of you could kind of like just talk a bit about like, for those that doesn't know, like what is World Football Summit, like what does it offer, like what are some of the things that people can experience by being part of this?
I think this is mine. as respectively, a little bit longer at WFS, I'm going to take this one, Jaime. So,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, so World Football Summit is where the football industry meets. That's the tagline, but it's become a lot more than that. It's basically where the extended sports industry comes together for kind of networking, kind of coming together to solve today's problems like nowhere else. There are going to be meetings that you're going to be able to have in 48 hours at a WFS event that you're probably not going to have for 6 months. Right. And it's that kind of, a really joyous occasion for us and for all our attendees that you kind of, really look forward to coming together and doing this kind of stuff. Even more so, like you said, post-pandemic, having in-person events has become so much more important for us, and it makes you feel better. But WFS as a whole, if I have to describe, is the platform, where we allow our brands, properties, clubs, leagues, federations, sports spin of every sport there is to just come and use the platform for spreading the right messages and addressing the issues that are, causing most havoc in the industry.
That's awesome. It's obviously a staple in the football industry at this point, but it's always good to kind of like, bring it out there. And for those that aren't aware, it's a global event, and a lot of people from all over the world is listening to this podcast. So, we got to just put it out there. But Jaime, I think it would be nice to, if you could cover a little bit, like talk a little bit about your role that you're having at World Football Summit, like some of your key responsibilities.
Well, basically, just to sum it up, Kabir is kind of at the heart and soul of the business, because he's the one in charge of bringing in all the speakers, all the, deciding the program, all the content, no? So awesome. Then my role comes in afterwards. I amplify what he's doing. So basically, I am responsible for all the marketing strategy. So on one hand, it's taking those speakers, the content and the knowledge they bring to the table, and share it with our whole community outside of the event. Okay, right. That's on one hand. So a lot of the content strategy and distribution of the content, but also marketing also understands or comprehends all the areas of analyzing the customer. So obviously we have B2B customers, and we'll go into detail later, no? But obviously we have businesses that work with us. So we look into the type of businesses that are more interested in coming to our events, and also the people that buy their tickets. So having that analysis just to make sure that the event that we prepare for them is relevant, which is the goal.
Awesome. And Kabir, as the heart and the soul, how do you describe that in terms of key tasks and responsibilities?
I'm going to try and stay humble, because Jaime has been doing a great job at marketing me. Thank you for that. But no, honestly, it is what he said, about bringing together that kind of knowledge from these experts, these global experts. They have to be, given the right kind of platform. They have a lot to share, and honestly, we need to listen to what they're saying. But it has to be delivered in a way that's comprehensible, coherent, and also kind of, something that's not hitting you too hard that you're shocked completely. So it has to be delivered in a fashion that everybody, no matter where they're coming from, all sort of attendees, sports industry or otherwise, are able to not only digest, but act upon that knowledge. So for me, it's more about being the point of contact for our speakers, from the point where they are interested in joining us, up until the point where I get them on the panel, they're comfortable there, we get them with the right moderators, the timing has to be correct, and then finally the panel takes place. So for me personally, my responsibilities kind of don't start or end. It's like a nice circle there.
That's awesome. It's a very, very critical role as well, right? The speaker has to feel comfortable, and it's a big part of the summit. So I get why I'm saying the heart and the soul. So there are many pieces to it, of course, and obviously all of your jobs are very important in order to make it a great event. But I think we had to talk a little about being a little bit back from in a sense post-pandemic, if you want to call it that way. And it's been a time where obviously it's been very little possible to have in-person events. And I guess like from both of your side, like how does it feel to be back in person, this September? And I guess like what are some of the key challenges you still face due to the situation that you still kind of like have to work with and cover?
Well, Ole, it feels great, to be honest. It is true that we've done several hybrid events, with the virtual and the physical component, but this year it's different. You feel people, there's a different vibe. People really look forward to having these in-person events. Right. And actually, I was speaking with one of our clients the other day, and actually goes back to the roles in marketing. Speak to your clients. That's key. And he was saying, that when you go to these in-person events, you actually accelerate business to another level, because you close years worth of work in just a few days. Right. So because you have that in-person conversation, and at the end of the day, where people know we like to talk in person, it is true though that there's still some challenges. One of the things that obviously the pandemic brought is the emergence of a lot of virtual events, and one of the things that we notice is that there's still, people can be more picky, if you want to call it that way, in terms of the events they want to attend. And I'm, referring to speakers, attendees, businesses, no? Right. Because there are a lot of events that you can go virtually as well. You really have to demonstrate the value of going into those events in person. So that's one of the challenges. And also, obviously, there's still some people that even, we live in a very different world as the one that we were living a few years ago. Some people are still more crowd conscious than they were before, no? So that you also have to respect that and be, respectful of that reality.
Right. You wanna touch upon something else, Kabir?
No, I think Jaime put that really in a good nutshell, because it has been difficult on that front. I was there when we were about to launch WFS Africa back in March 2020, when we got to know the big news, and then we had to really, really redesign ourselves as a company, in that moment, because we did not know when we were going back to an in-person event. And we kind of, I would say, successfully became a hybrid events company quite fast over the course of a couple of months, because we were ready with WFS Live in July. And that was a tremendous success, considering we had Ronaldo, we had President Infantino joined that one as well. And for me, I mean, personally, I had just moved to Madrid, and this was just kind of a gigantic change. And I think that has been a big challenge going forward, because last year when we were at the Wanda Metropolitano, it was technically an in-person event, but I completely agree with Jaime that there was that kind of, consciousness with the crowd. They were, concerned about, hey, is everything going to be okay and everything. Yeah. Despite the safety factor very much in place, it's going to take some time. And I hope that this is the year where we finally, get rid of those mini shackles, as you were, where we feel that, hey, we're happy, we're safe, we're celebrating at a WFS event.
Right. No, I mean, like makes total sense. And I mean, like in a pandemic situation, you kind of like have to adapt and change very fast. Like it's kind of like the whole adapt or die situation. I mean, like not necessarily has to go that far, but it's just follow a little bit that element. And I think like if we look a little bit forward and we sharing like I guess some of the trends or like things that you guys foresee in the Football Summit events category moving forward, because I think obviously the pandemic was a very valuable learning experience and a valuable key lessons. So looking kind of like into that experience, how kind of like I guess the event and summit landscape has changed. What are some of the key trends that you both foresee moving forward for this industry and sector?
One thing that's becoming more and more evident today is a short form of pretty much anything, content or event for that matter. Right. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of speakers, a lot of our attendees would prefer, this is my foreseeing, a shorter event, pre-events, post-events, but like those with like short form events, really quick, speed marketing, speed networking, if you will, of right. Those sorts of events are going to be a little bit more popular with the crowd. And I think one of the key trends that you're going to see this year, especially at WFS 22 is the onset of themes, becoming very, very important with your content. And we developed the WFS tracks. We have 11 of them that encompass, mostly everything that falls under the sun of sports industry. Right. Sustainability, Web 3.0, women's football, everything, investments, governance and legal, all that kind of thing. The idea is that when you put everything in sort of like, different topics and tracks, it becomes a lot easier for the people who, even if they have a short attention span, who want to know, okay, right, I want to watch this particular panel because it falls under Web 3.0. I know nothing about investments. I'll probably go and get myself educated. So for me, those are the next, upcoming trends.
Yeah, well, makes total sense. And I mean, like, it's a very, as you were talking about, like the attention span, and I guess in itself also what the end user and the participant is also demanding, right? In a sense of like, it's much higher demands of like also finding kind of like the things that you align better with. Now I think people is like, it's all about kind of like the ROI, right? Like how do I get the most out of that experience that I'm attending? And I mean, like, it makes sense to kind of optimize that and personalize it as much as you can.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm thinking as well, just to jump in on the trends, Ole, is out of the big events like the ones that we organize in WFS Europe, you have different, imagine this is like an umbrella, no? You have different events that are, let's say, as Kabir was saying, no, more focused on different topics, right? So maybe you have one focused solely on innovation. And right, then on that regard, you can just really focus the conversation on those topics so that those that are really, back to your point, that are really want to target a specific group of the industry, they know where to go. At the end of the day, both events complement each other, because in terms of capacity, in terms of knowledge, in terms of breadth of content, obviously the flagship events like World Football Summit, like the one that we have, it covers a lot of things because we have more time. But if you want to really go niche, I think that's another trend we'll see in the future.
I was just about to say that, Jaime has made a very nice, link to our Football Innovation Forum that we just held in May, because that is exactly, that kind of short form, one day quick fire event where we go through with like, okay, football innovation, that's it.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, it makes sense though, right? Because I mean, like I think sport industry as well have become quite, and even the football industry itself has become quite segmented, right? And we kind of like have our areas of expertise or knowledge or areas that we want to kind of like dive deeper into or focus into. And so hence, like, you kind of creates this narrow pathway, right? In terms of like what you want to learn. And I guess like once we're in the element of talking about like the main event in September itself, and if you want to like highlight a bit about like what kind of audience are you targeting, and how can young students and sport professionals attend this event? Because obviously at the end of the day you talk a lot about B2B, but it's also the student, the professional that are attending these events too. So talk a little bit about that.
That's actually a marketing question, so I'll take this one. Yeah, on one hand, as you said, there's a component, there's a B2B component where we have people coming, representing football clubs, leagues, federations. There's also sports brands, so call it service providers, tech companies, you name it. Anybody who wants to get associated with the industry. But as you said, there's also a component in terms of B2C, no? So there's individuals that, for whatever reason, they just go in there without representing any institution. They just want to, go on their own terms, or they don't want to partner in terms of find a partnership, no? And obviously, there's a big component of students as well, which are the future of the industry. Now, here, students, they can actually. This is a big key for us because some of them volunteer, and it's a great way to get your foot in the door. In fact, some of our current colleagues are working with us because they previously volunteered to some of our events. But there's also a lot of students that are actually looking to, because when you study these things, and I studied an MBA sports management, you don't realize how many companies there are out there. So it's a great opportunity to go in there and see the different businesses and the different the breadth of the industry, and in that sense, well, actually, thanks to you guys, I mean, because you help us reach a lot of that crowd, no, of those students that want to enter the industry. And in fact, you have the students that come in through you guys get a special discount, no? So make sure you get advantage of that, because it's a great way to really get your foot in the door. And I'm not saying that just because I'm in this podcast.
Right.
It is how it works. So
yeah, I'm like, I think it's first of all, we're proud to be part of the event, and I think it's important for the community, right? That we're part of, and I mean, like our goal, and I think we have a a similar goal in many senses, to help educate the industry and help people to have a better understanding of what they're doing, right? So we're very happy to that you guys are having a special discount for Sporting Global users. So obviously make sure to check that out, and if you haven't signed up, do that so you get that special discount. And I mean, like I think is actually talking about too, and I think this is one of the key things, which is very important, because a lot of people that wants to go in the football industry, they're very kind of like, oh, I want to work for Barcelona, Real Madrid, Messi, and it's like only the big players, right? And then you kind of like forget that, well, there's a lot of other teams, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the football industry alone. It's not just clubs and leagues, that is part of that. And then it's also kind of like the element of competition, right? And so like, yeah, I mean, like how many people want to work for Real Madrid? Okay, that's a lot of people, and maybe they have one position and then it's only one person that can get that job. So if you want to reach those goals, I mean, like there's many pathways to perhaps end up there one day, and utilizing these kind of events, these kind of summits, to learn more about what's going on, like see perhaps maybe there's a company that you can work for that works with Real Madrid, and then you kind of like have that link nonetheless. So there's always pathways in there, and I think that segues really well into my last questions, which really touches upon, and I want kind of both of you to kind of have sharing each your side here. I'm sure you guys will align a little bit, but we want to talk a little bit about some final key tips that you have for anyone out there looking to get their foot in the football industry. Like, first of all, like what kind of tips is that, and second of all, like how can they stand out at an event like World Football Summit, for instance? Because I think one of the key things is people are like, okay, I want to go there, and like you're kind of like, okay, I'm attending this event, I'm buying the ticket, like I'm going down there, and then I'm just going around and I'm listening to stuff, and then it's just like, yes, I learned some new stuff, but how do you like stand out? How do you optimize, this thing? Because a lot of the things when you're young, it's like people say, okay, you got to network, you got to get experience, but nobody tells you like, how do you actually do it? And so two-part question there, like what kind of tips do you have for students that want to go into the industry? And second, what is your like, top tip for standing out at the World Football Summit event or something similar?
Perfect. I'll kickstart this one, Jaime. Seeing that, I have come out from the outside of the industry, so I think I'm a little bit better inclined to talk about, what you said about coming in, looking for that elusive Real Madrid job, so to speak. And I think the first thing is going to be a little on the nose, but it's also one of the most important things to know. You need to be patient. It's not an A, B, C situation. You're not going to just come in, take a master's, first job out of the Real Madrid. Not going to happen. It's just, I mean, it might sound a little cliched, but it's true. I think one of my mentors really early on reminded me of that, no matter who you are, you're going to have to work your way to the top. And not only that, sometimes you need to wait your turn. And that's okay. And I feel that's very important to learn, because when you realize that you're going to be patient, you're going to be working harder, and you're also going to take opportunities in front of you a lot more seriously than instead of just thinking, oh, this is just a stepping stone to, moving on. It's like, when people say that, players move from one club to the other, but they have like a bigger club in mind, this is not the same thing. Yeah. Every opportunity, every company, everywhere you work is very important for you to give your 100%, because you're going to be learning a lot more on the job than daydreaming. And I think which kind of brings me into my second point for that matter in terms of tips is it's very important to know who you are and what you want, because just thinking that I want a job at a club, company or something, that's not going to be enough. Right. And from my personal experience, that actually turns off a lot of the employers, because you're like, oh, I can do everything. That's not who they're looking for. They're looking for very specific experts. Jaime, for that matter, we were very excited to have somebody who understands marketing top to bottom. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, that it's okay to not know when you're starting out, but you have to start to, become a little self-aware and really want to know that, okay, this is where I want to work with. This is what I'm good at.
So before Jaime, you kind of jump in here, I wanted to just touch a little bit upon it, like in terms of kind of advice for like going like at an event, because I mean, like, I think a lot of the challenge with young students and kind of like people in the industry is that they want to work with sports, right, or football, or they kind of like have that idea, but they don't know what yet. And so, if kind of like going to that event and sort of like you talk a little bit about kind of that finding that angle, right, and like for my side, I mean, like you feel free to disagree or agree accordingly of how you want, but I think going into these events, it's like have a clear goal or like tracks that you want to like, okay, this should be my focus for like this event. Like if you want to learn more about marketing, okay, so focus on the things that are about marketing. Or if you want to learn more about business, okay, focus on this then, and kind of like have that as your angle. So you kind of like already have decided on a track, in a sense, to kind of like make your, I guess, in a sense, experience a little bit more specific, more relevant. And that perhaps also trickle into like, if you choose like a marketing route, okay, maybe it makes sense for you to connect with as much marketing people that you can and try to soak in as much knowledge from that. And it's just like builds a very, pathway. But again, like I'm just sharing what I'm thinking, but feel free, like if there is anything else you want to add on or touch upon that.
Difficult to add. I was just thinking, just to make it quick, but three quick things. No, on one hand, obviously people in the industry are very empathetic, because they've been in your position before.
Yeah.
So they once started out as well. So they're really looking forward to speaking to you. And then I guess I see it two ways. On one hand, well, first you have to add value in the sense of what does the person you're speaking with going to get out of speaking from you, right? Because everybody can go up and say, hey, I want to work for Real Madrid. Okay, what makes you different? So but that's what you really need to think about. And there's a difference between being, and honestly, I'm the biggest introvert in the world, no? So I guess these type of events for introvert people, it's tough. But sometimes you have to understand that maybe adding value is also, introverts are good at listening.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't need to speak as much, but you do have to listen and ask the right questions. And that also adds value. So I think that's something that you shouldn't really be afraid of. You feel like you don't have something to say, fine, but you do have something to listen to, and then keep asking questions and show your curiosity. So anybody can benefit from this.
I think is a very important thing you're touching upon there too. And I mean, like there's all kind of people attending this event. And I mean, like, again, finding your angle and understanding what you're good at, at the end of the day, it's coming down to like, okay, who are you as a person? And of course, putting yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone, which we all need to do in order to keep learning. I mean, like, I think with that, we're pretty much, time for us to wrap up. It's been a lot of fun talking with both of you about a little bit about your journey, a lot about World Football Summit as an event and what's going on, and things that are happening, in the near future. So it's very exciting. It's been a pleasure having both of you here, and thanks once again for sharing your tips and insights. And it was a lot of fun for having you guys here.
Ole, thank you for having us. For us, it was great, and we really look forward to meeting in person in Sevilla. So,
likewise, I'm really looking forward to
Agreed.
it.
Thank you so much, Ole. This was really fun.
I'm glad to hear it, and for those of you that have been here all the way at the end, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well, so you get weekly tips, from key leaders every week, from all over the sport industry, all over the world, sharing their tips and insights, their journey, so you can help find your pathway. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to sign up at sportingglobal.com for free. Download the iOS app or Android, whatever preference you have, so you can connect with the guys at World Football Summit. You can get a special discount, all this good stuff, so you're ready for the event in September. Lastly, though, there's one thing here that I gotta, we had a little bit challenge at the Sporting Global podcast, And so I have to challenge you guys out a little bit, at the end here. It's just a tradition at this point, And so I have to teach you guys a little bit of Norwegian. It's like the one thing we have to do.
Go for it.
Yeah, so be ready. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means see you later in Norwegian. So that's what you guys have to say.
Vi snakkes.
There you go.
Vi snakkes.
Perfect. You guys are naturals. It's amazing. Well done.
And have us over at Norway, and we'll, for a couple of weeks, we'll get better at that.
Pretty much.
Exactly. Over some pickled herring, if I'm not wrong. Like, don't get me.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a Nordic thing. I'm not
my bad.
a big fan, but yeah. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Ole, thank you so much.
Ole, gracias. Ciao.
All right.
Good
luck, kids.
Bye.